Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. This is BethChatsBooks. Today is going to be a book haul of random books that I've acquired over the last few months. I just want to apologise if it's really loud. I live on a main road and people are walking past, buses are going past, there's some guy that sounds like he has a chainsaw out there. I don't know whether he's doing something to his garden, but it's exceptionally loud. I've just come back from town. I went to the library to collect some reservations. I still have a lot of reservations to collect, but basically I haven't been doing videos very much in the last few months. I've just handed an essay in on the 11th and we're on the 13th of August today. It was my last essay for this particular module, so I get a break now until the end of September. And I have been obsessively buying books, taking books out of the library and not reading them because I've been obsessed and very anxious about this module. It's been a very intense module. It had a lot of group work and study and data collection components that were incredibly time consuming. But as I've been a reader my whole life, whenever I'm sad, I just look at books, I research books, I go to the library and take out books, even when I know I have no way of reading them. So I've de-stressed. This is the first weekend since I handed the essay in, so I went to town to collect some library books, and I thought it's about time I showed you some of this massive stack. So I've roughly counted the stack and it's about 50 books that I've accumulated over the last few months, and they're kind of split into library books, books I've bought myself, and then books I've been gifted by my auntie. She's basically read them and then passed them on to me. But I really wanted to do this video. I have full intention of trying to create more videos, but obviously with the Masters it's really taken a lot of energy out of me. I am participating in the last round, the finals of the BookTube prize. I haven't read any of the books yet, but I'm going to zoom through those. I've reserved 5 of them and I have an e-copy of the 6th book. So one of the books in the pile is one of the BookTube books, and I'll briefly mention at the end the other 5 that I'm reading. I'm reading the fiction's final round, so if you already watched the BookTube prize you'll pretty much know which 6 titles they are, but I'll tell you at the end. But I'm going to be trying to be as quick as possible because there's 50 plus books, so I might not go into detailed synopsis, and most of these books you probably will have heard of. A lot of them are quite buzzy or have been buzzy on BookTube recently. So let's get started. I haven't put these in any chronological order either, so they are a mishmash completely. I might just pick up a book that my auntie's given me and then a book from the library. I didn't structure or organise this because I haven't filmed in a while, so it's rusty. We're rusty. So let's just crack on. So the first book I have is The Yellow House by Sarah M. Broom. I took this out of the library. This is a biography or an autobiography on this woman's life growing up in, where is it? It's going to book me now. In New Orleans, and her family life, and I think it's split into 2 parts. It's about her and her family, and then when Hurricane Katrina struck and how that devastated the area, impacted on her identity, the identity of New Orleans. So it's kind of a family saga mixed in with that incident. In a kind of 2-part structure, I believe. I wanted to read this for ages, so I took this out of the library and I've literally renewed it multiple times, and I need to get around to reading it. Then I have The Scandal by Frederick Bachman, which I didn't realise until afterwards is the English version of The Bear Town, which is the US edition of this. So when I took this out I thought, I've never heard of this Frederick Bachman title before, not realising it's basically Bear Town. So still really excited to read this. So it's set in Sweden, because Frederick Bachman's Swedish, and it follows a area called Bear Town. The town is on the verge of an astonishing revival, a bright new future. All of this is put in jeopardy by a single brutal act that divides the town. At last it falls to one young man to find the courage to speak the truth that it seems no one wants to hear. So I think this is a really interesting premise. It's a very small, tight-knit community, and then an incident occurs, I believe, and then it kind of has reverberations around the community. People are divided on opinion and there's tensions brewing. and it's whether they can bring the community back together, I believe. I don't know much about it, I'm going into it quite blind, so I'm looking forward to that one. Then I have The Lamplighters by Emma Stonex. I probably said that wrong. These so far are all library books, by the way. So Lamplighters is a historical fiction. I think it's set in the 80s and it's about lighthouse keepers. Cornwall in 1972, and about lighthouse keepers. 3 keepers vanish from a remote lighthouse. What happened to the men? And obviously I think it will be a sweeping historical fiction. I haven't read as much historical fiction this year. I've tended to be really interested in mystery and thrillers at the moment, but I do have a soft spot for historical fiction and literary fiction, always have done. So while I'm kind of expanding my genre taste, I always know historical fictions will go down quite well, particularly if they're not focused in the world wars, because I feel like there's been massive oversaturation of that, and every time I hear set in World War II, I automatically put the book down and think, no. But this is going to be set in the 70s, so I think that'll be really interesting. Then another library book I have is The Cartographers by Payne Shepherd. This was really buzzed about a few months ago, and then I found out the library had a copy, so I quickly snapped it up. Obviously I haven't read it yet though. So this focuses on Nell Young, who lives her life in and around maps. Her father is the most respected cartographer in the world, but this morning he was found dead or murdered in his office at the New York Public Library. But I do believe there is a little bit of maybe magical realism. There's some kind of magical elements I think that people have hinted to, that it's not just going to be a straightforward mystery, and it's going to tie into the map cartography thing. That's what I believe. Again, I don't know anything about this. The other cover, I think the US cover, is exceptionally gorgeous. This is pretty. Well, I don't really like it as much, but that's just personal preference. But it is quite a chunky book as well. I didn't expect it to be as big as it is. It's nearly 400 pages, so this will be interesting. Then I have We Were Never Here by Andrea Bartz. This one, and there's another one that has a really similar cover. I always get them slightly confused. Never Saw Me Coming by Vera Kurian, but they both had really similar covers when they came out, so I always get them confused. Anyway, this is the one we're talking about that I took from the library, and this is also a Reese's Book Club pick. I literally know nothing about this. It says Emily is on holiday with her best friend Kristen in the stunning mountains of Chile. They're having the time of their lives until on the last night of the trip, Emily enters their hotel suite to find it covered in blood. It's quite an interesting new trope that's formed about kind of backpacking friends and murder, or mystery, or something odd going on between female friendships. In the kind of holiday genre it's kind of developed, but it also has developed in literary fiction as well, this kind of strange relationship between two women, not necessarily sapphic, but unnerving, you know, kind of obsessive. And I read one quite similar in premise to this. I can't remember. Oh, well, was it Other People's Clothes? It might have been that one by Cara, I've forgotten her name now. And that was like 2 girls who backpacked around Berlin, and they were staying there for a study, an Erasmus study program. And they had a strange relationship, and that kind of had a mystery element to it. But anyway, I'll be intrigued to see how it's done in this. Then I took out, I have no idea why, State of Terror by Hillary Rodham Clinton and Louise Penny. I recently read While Justice Sleeps by Stacey Abrams, I've completely forgot off the top of my head, sorry. And that was a political thriller, and I really enjoyed it. A lot of it went over my head, but I was intrigued to kind of flex those muscles more with reading and maybe try more political thrillers. And this is kind of the most raved about political thriller that's currently out. God, I can't speak words today. It is absolute, like, chunky door stopper size. It is, let's have a little look, 486 pages, so that is a lot. But I really want to read Louise Penny. I have started collecting all the Gamache books and haven't read any of them yet. But I trust that she's a really great writer, and this has had quite high praise, so I wanted to give it a go and see whether I would enjoy it. Then I have The Survivors by Jane Harper. I've always wanted to read a Jane Harper, and I believe this is a standalone. I think there's another, the Dry is now part of a series, I think, but this is just a standalone, so I thought it was a great place to start with her. It says, Kieran Elliott's life is changed forever on a single day when a reckless mistake led to devastating consequences. The guilt that haunts him still resurfaces during a visit from his young family to the small coastal town he once called home. Sounds interesting, and I think the cover is absolutely incredible. So I kind of want to go into this. I know this is Australian fiction, mystery, thriller type things, and on the back it has The Dry, The Force of Nature, The Lost Man. I know that Jane Harper likes to write in a lot of detail about the landscape of Australia and the remoteness of it, and that really appeals to me. Then I have Night Bitch by Rachel Yoder. I'm a little bit sceptical about this. I took this out because the girls at What Page Pod, Alice Slater and Bethany Rutter, said that this was incredible, and it's very short. It's only, I think, about 238 pages, but I do think it has some very strange elements that I might not like. I'm a little bit apprehensive about. I think it talks about a character changing into an animal, into a dog, I believe, and it's an exploration of women's kind of animalistic energy, I believe. It says, at home full-time with 2-year-old son, an artist finds she is struggling. She is lonely and exhausted. She has imagined, what was it she had imagined? Her husband, always travelling for work, calls her from faraway hotel rooms. One more toddler bedtime and she fears she might lose her mind. And it kind of plays on, it says here, she starts gaining things, surprising things happen one night. She kind of seems to be transitioning and turning, so it's kind of a talk about motherhood and female animalistic desire and female kind of aggressive energy, and how this isn't really depicted so much, so a lot of people find this a very liberating read. So I don't know how I'll get on with it, but I want to give it a go because I've loved every recommendation from What Page Pod from the girls, so I think it will be good. Then I have a book that I bought. Stopping stuff from falling. I've got Dirt Town here by Hayley Scrivener. This is like the most beautiful cover that you've ever seen as well, isn't it? It's just stunning. So this is another Australian writer, and this is kind of set in a no-bit kind of small remote town, and something happens. Dark crimes happen in dying places, it says on the front. So it's kind of a deadbeat town, and something happens, and we kind of learn about all the different characters. I think it's stunning. Even the end papers inside, how beautiful is that? The photography is just like gorgeous. But I think it kind of goes through this community. I don't know much about it, but I just think this cover is absolutely beautiful, and I heard a few people raving, and I just thought I really need to own this. It just looks amazing, so I bought myself that. Then I have The Paper Palace by Miranda Coley Heller. I do have an e-copy of this that I got a very long time ago from NetGalley, but I never got around to reading it. And my auntie finished this and she said it's absolutely amazing. I thought this was more of a thriller, and I feel like it was marketed for a long time in hauls on Instagram and on YouTube as kind of a thriller, but this isn't really a thriller. It talks about family dynamics. It says On a perfect August morning, Elle Bishop heads out for a swim in the pond below the Paper Palace, her family's holiday home in Cape Cod. As she dives beneath the water, she relives the passionate encounter she had the night before against the side of the house that knows all her darkest secrets, while her husband and mother chatted to their guests inside. So it kind of actually almost has a love triangle, I think, in here. And it goes through the history of their relationship and the history of her relationship to the person she has an affair with. So it's a lot more literary than I think it's been suggested, or I was under the impression of, which is fine, but my auntie said it's got a strange ending, like that she wants to kind of debrief with me about, so she wants me to read it so we can discuss the ending, so there's that. Then I have Savage Appetite by Rachel Monroe. This is just non-fiction kind of breakdown of true crime. I've always wanted, since I heard about this quite a while ago, to get a copy. It's very difficult to get in the UK, this particular book. They don't seem to sell it. I think maybe Blackwell's you can get a copy of, but the girls at What Page Pod rave about this. And she basically takes the example of women in crime, so she's put the detective, the victim, the defender, the killer, and breaks down kind of theory about women as a victim and how we portray crime, and every time you see true crime non-fiction that's recommended that you need to read, this just always comes up. So this was just on my radar. I wanted to own it and eventually read it. Again, this is another true crime that I bought for myself. I think I did end up buying this on Amazon, and I think this was shipped internationally as well. And this is The Babysitter by Lisa Rodman and Jennifer Jordan. I do have an interest in true crime non-fiction, especially if it's written in a narrative way. I do quite like watching true crime documentaries, that's just my thing. So I keep a radar of great true crime non-fiction that people are raving about, that's kind of stood the test of time, that people really think is good, and then kind of put it on my radar. So this is one of those. It's basically about their experience with a serial killer, who I'm presuming was their babysitter, and their experience. It's got a really beautiful hardback cover. This isn't quite as pretty, the paperback. But again, this is just more for my personal collection. I wouldn't, assume that everybody would be collecting these things. I know I love the American floppy paperback so much. I was talking to my boyfriend about this the other day, about how it's fantastic to read a paperback when it's so floppy, and how in the UK we tend to have incredibly tight paperbacks with not a lot of give, and then you're scared of snapping spines. It just fascinates me. There's that one. Then I have Dead Girls by Sylvia Almada. I had to read Brickmakers by this author for the translated category, the last category I judged for the prize this year, and I thought it was super well done. I really loved it, and when I first started reading it I didn't think I would because of the way it was set up. It's about two men who are dying in an amusement park, a theme park, and then we kind of travel back to hear their stories and their family stories. Anyway, it was fantastic. And then I was alerted to the fact that this author had done a kind of true crime non-fiction. So this is about Argentina, and 3 small town teenage girls murdered in the early 1980s. So to me, those are just buzzwords that I think this author wrote amazing. I think the translation by Annie McDermott, which she translated the other book that I read, is phenomenal. Buzzwords about small town murders and things like that they're already on my radar. So, but I did hear a lot of people really think this is a good book. So again, when I felt sorry for myself, I did a massive haul, and a lot of those books down there I bought for myself. So another one I have is Sebastian Faulk's Snow Country. I literally know nothing about this. Mum gifted me this because she finished reading it. I've never got round to fully reading a Sebastian Faulks as of yet. Mum loves him. She's read every single one of his books. He's got multiple. A lot of them tend to have a World War focus, and I think that's why I tend to not read them, because I'm just not in that headspace to read a lot of that. Again, this one's going to be quite similar, set in 1914, 1927 and 1933. I mean, I'm a historian, and I love, you know, learning about these things, but I think it's a bit of history that I've been oversaturated with. So I'll read it at some point, but there's that. Then I bought for myself My Best Friend's Exorcism by Grady Hendrix. I'm just completely in love with this cover. I think it's absolutely incredible. I love the whole, like, it looks like a, you know, retro VHS tape kind of thing. I love that. So basically I've been obsessed with Stranger Things, and I finished it, but now we're going back and rewatching it because Chris, my boyfriend, hasn't ever watched it. So completely obsessed with the whole 80s vibe, and also, like, surprisingly, I'm tentatively trying to dip my toe into horror because I really love thrillers. And on paper, I've always said I'm not a horror reader, I don't like things like that, and I don't like dark sci-fi, but then I've been obsessed with Stranger Things, so I think that maybe I need to start challenging myself a little bit more. And everybody said that although this has some scary elements, the friendship between the two girls and the 80s references are incredible, and I really want to get into Grady Hendrix. I want to get into kind of Grady Hendrix, Riley Sager, all these ones that are buzzy at the moment, Stephen Graham Jones, things like that, and see if maybe they will help me. A lot of people say this is a bit similar to It as well, and I do want to try and take on more Stephen King. I've only read one book by him, and it was one of his newer ones, Billy Summers, and it literally had no horror elements. It was just a thriller. So I need to kind of dip my toes in. I did really like it though. So I started off with this. I also bought Hidden Pictures by Jason Rekulak. This again has been getting massive buzz. This is kind of the hardback, it's not as pretty. There's a different edition that's been going around the internet, so if this looks a bit strange to you. But this is playing around with the kind of imagery. So it's all about a child who starts off with innocent pictures and then starts creating more disturbing pictures. And I really like that kind of multimedia element of incorporating that into a story. This is meant to be great. Everybody's really raved about this. This is slowly as well getting more into that horror genre that I want to try, but literally everybody unanimously on the internet seems to think that this is good, so that's a great place to start. And Grady Hendrix has said great things about it on the back, so there's that. Then I have Colleen Hoover's Verity. There was a phase where everybody said try this book because it's more of a thriller than a romance, because I do not read romance, it's just not a genre for me. I don't mind romantic elements in my story, and I don't mind character development where I kind of want them to make it work or things like that. I get very invested in those stories. For example, I've loved Wuthering Heights, and a lot of people deem that a tainted love story, but yeah, so a lot of people say that this has got kind of thriller elements, so it's a first start into Colleen Hoover. So I kind of followed the hype and bought this because it was very cheap. And then since I bought this, I've seen that 2 people have read it. I think Jordaline Reads read it, and April from Getting Hoover read it and said it was absolute trash. So I'm expecting I'll probably think the same, but it was one of those things I think I need to tick off and just see whether, again, I might just be saying I don't like something when I might do, but I basically fell into the hype on that one. Then I've got Ruth Oseki's new book, The Book of Form and Emptiness. My auntie gifted me this because this won the Women's Prize for Fiction this year. I literally know absolutely nothing about it. I know that it's had some people loving it, some people hating it. A lot of people wanted different books, things like The Great Circle and something else. They wanted them to win, so this wasn't really prized to win in terms of public opinion. This is also nearly 600 pages. I've heard some people have DNF'd this, so this is on my radar to read, but as you can tell, the font is absolutely minuscule as well. So this won't be slap bang on my priority list, but I think it's really important. I really like reading the shortlist, the long list and the winners of this prize. I've been a little bit slack on that in recent years, but I always keep logs of these things. I'll go on the websites and check, because I do really, I do like reading my prizes, but it's just not been that kind of year. It's been more easy thriller kind of year, but there's that. Then I bought Tell Me I'm Worthless by Alison Rumfit. Again, this was entirely because the girls from What Page, they raved about this. This is kind of, some people have said it's a haunted house gothic story, but it's also about a trans character. And apparently, I heard someone read this quite recently and they said it's incredibly dark. Like, it goes to really dark places of transphobia. I do tend to have quite a high threshold in terms of books to be able to deal with disturbing content. But we'll see. But that will challenge that. But the girls said that this was absolutely incredible, and they highly rave and rate about Cypher Press, which a lot of books that they highly love and rave come from that publishing house. So this is bigger than I expected. I thought this was more novella size, but it's about 260 pages. Beautiful cover. It's going to be probably quite disturbing, but I'm really excited to get to it. And then I also have Unspeakable Acts by Sarah Weinman. This I had to try about 3 or 4 times to get access to, because again, this is really difficult to get shipped over to the UK. I tried about 3 times on Amazon to finally get a copy of this, but everybody says, you know, it's one of the great books of true crime non-fiction. You know, it says true tales of crime, murder, deceit and obsession. When I looked at reviews, some people said it does include killers that, you know, you might well be aware of if you're into the true crime genre. Obviously I am, but a lot of people said it didn't detract, it wasn't a repetition, this is a refreshing look. And it's got an introduction by Patrick Radden Keefe, and I love Patrick Radden Keefe's writing. I'm desperate to read his newest book, Empire of Pain, because I loved the Irish one, Say Nothing, something like that. I can't remember it off the top of my head. So yeah, I can't wait to get to this one. Then I have One by One by Ruth Ware. This is meant to be the most loved book of Ruth Ware's, and this is kind of loosely based on the Agatha Christie, and there were none, I believe. I did see that How to Train Your Gavin recently did a book vlog on most hated books on BookTube, which I didn't realise this was hated, because a lot of videos I've seen, this is people's favourite Ruth Ware, and he absolutely hated it. So it'll be really interesting to see what I think about this. So it basically has people who are creating a music app all come together, and similar to And Then There Were None, people just start dying off one by one, and then we have to figure out what's going on. Then I've got Lessons in Chemistry by Bonnie Garmus. My auntie bought this for me. She said it was fantastic. I know that between the covers, the British TV show that's kind of it's basically a book club for celebrities in the UK. They're only about 20 minutes long. I absolutely adore it. I really love the format, and I really love hearing people talk about books. It's just really amazing for me. They raved about this. So it's set in the 60s, and it's kind of about a tech woman and she ends up on a cooking show, but she kind of teaches about science and things like this, so it's very feminist and empowering, and everybody says it's very, very funny as well. So I'm really interested to see if I'll get on with this. Ooh, I'm having to get further back here now. And then I've got Local Woman Missing by Mary Kubica. Again, since I bought this, it's had a bit more mixed reaction than it did, because a lot of people were saying that they loved this. So this is when a local woman and her 6-year-old daughter Delia suddenly vanish. Their close-knit suburban community is rocked by fear and suspicion. So it sounded really interesting to me, because it says as more people go missing, the community is confused about what's happening. The US has a much prettier cover than this. but I heard a lot of people, Gabby Reeds really enjoyed this, and a lot of people said it's a really great thriller. A lot of people have mixed responses about Mary Kubica in general, but they rave about this one, so I wanted to give it a go. Then I've got Fresh Water for Flowers by Valerie Perrin. My mum gifted me this. Apparently it is about a lady in France who takes on a job as a caretaker at a cemetery, and she talks about her daily life in this job, people that she meets. My mum said it's incredibly moving and beautiful, and it's recently, I think, been translated and come over here, so there's a bit of a revival of this book, and Mum said I really need to read it at some point again. This is nearly 500 pages with quite small font, so it's on my radar to read at some point. Then I've got Vladimir by Julia May Jonas. I pre-ordered this because I knew I was going to really want to read this, and unfortunately I haven't got around to it yet. But this is about a couple. I think they're both academics, and her husband gets accused of sexual assault, inappropriate relationships with students, and then she they have an open relationship, so she's aware that he's been sleeping with other people, but now this is going to tarnish her reputation. And then a second subplot develops when I think a student comes to study, and she gets an infatuation. I believe it's a student, I'm not entirely sure with that, and she gets infatuated with this person, and we hear all about that from her point of view in this story. I know a lot of people have said this is quite controversial. I know a lot of people find the cover quite irritating because it looks kind of like millennial angst when really this is a darker story, but I'm really excited to get to this one. Then I have Unmasked by Paul Holes. Crime scenes, cold cases, and my hunt for the Golden State Killer. This is just my kind of kryptonite kind of book. I've seen a lot of true crime, thriller, horror, mystery Instagram accounts that were buzzing about this when it came out, said it was really, really well done. And when I was going through a phase of feeling sorry for myself and ordering books, because I had a lot of gift cards that I still could use up, this just went in the basket. I don't know what else you want me to say really on that one. Then I've got Sexy Psycho by Dr. Jessica Taylor, How the Patriarchy Used Women's Trauma Against Them. I watch a lot of true crime, as I've mentioned, and Jessica is usually on quite a lot of the British TV shows and documentaries. So I did a bit of research and a deep dive into her, and she focuses a lot of her work on patriarchy. She is a lesbian woman, and she talks about how women are represented in mental health and in crime and victimisation of women, and you can tell it's something that she's incredibly passionate about. She calls herself a working class feminist author on the back, so I really want to read her work and see how I feel about that. Also, this is a beautiful and naked hardback, which I just think is gorgeous, so that one in the basket. Then I've got here 9 Lives by Peter Swanson. This also became a little bit like One by One by Ruth Ware. After I ordered it, a few people gave mixed reviews. How to Train Your Gareth did not like this at all, but again I think it's kind of similar to an Agatha Christie style. There's like a list of people on the back, and people keep starting to get killed off, that kind of concept. We've all heard it a lot, but Peter Swanson is quite well respected in the thriller mystery community, so I've got high hopes for this. I did hear a lot of people raving about it when it first came out, so there's that. And then I've got The Paris Apartments by Lucy Foley. Have I read both of Lisa Foley's books? I've read The Guest List and The Hunting Party. Yes, I've read both books of hers. The Hunting Party I thought was done a lot better than the other one. However, I find them both very enjoyable reads, fast-paced, and this seems like the best concept that she's done yet. So it's about a woman who goes to visit her brother in Paris. She turns up at his apartment, he's not there. The residents who live locally around him don't want to talk, and she wants to find out what basically happened to her brother. So I'm excited to get around to reading this at some point. We're getting there. So next I've got is In My Dreams I Hold a Knife by Ashley Winstead. A lot of people have now said that this book is rubbish, but some people enjoyed it. It's dark academia, they have a reunion, and she comes back, but there was a death at some point of one of the students, and we have to find out what happened. How to Kill Your Family by Bella Mackie. My auntie gave me this. I literally have seen it all over Waterstones at bookshops, but I know nothing about it. I think it's from the perspective of a serial killer. Don't know much more than that. This Might Hurt by Stephanie Robble. This again is a highly raved thriller that's come out recently. It says Natalie Collins always has a plan. Her troubled younger sister Kit rarely does. Until Kit finds Wiseward, a secretive self-help retreat on a secluded Maine island, it promises you a better, braver version of yourself. Then after 6 months of silence, she receives an email. Some kind of thriller. A lot of people have said this is really, really good, so I want to get to it. Then I've got Girl in Snow by Danica Kafka. I took this out the library because they currently don't have notes on an execution yet, but that's the one that I really, really want to read. But this had a really interesting premise, which is that when beloved high school student Lucinda Hayes is found murdered, no one in the sleepy Colorado suburb is untouched. Not the boy who loved her too much, not the girl who wanted her perfect life, not the police officer assigned to investigate. So it talks about people's obsession with her, and when she's gone missing, how they're interconnected. Kind of has a little bit of Virgin Suicides vibe by that kind of premise, which is my favourite book of all time. So the buzzwords were, buzzy enough for me to take this out. Then I have Bathhouse by PJ Vernon. I picked this up on a whim, but it has since had really, really rave reviews. It says Oliver Park, a recovering addict from Indiana, finally has everything he ever wanted: sobriety and a loving partner in Dr. Nathan Klein, a prominent Washington, D.C. trauma surgeon. Despite their differences in age and backgrounds, they built an enviable life together. But then obviously things go a little bit wrong. It's kind of meant to be quite raunchy and sexy. I think the Bathhouse is kind of a gay, it says here, house is a gay bathhouse. It's seductive anonymity of this room, raunchy things are going to happen, and I think it's just going to be a fun, naughty time, this kind of book, so I'm excited to get to that. Then I have Cleopatra and Frankenstein by Coco Mellors. Again, I took this out of the library. This is just everywhere at the moment. This is kind of about a dysfunctional relationship between two people that probably has devastating consequences. So let's have a little look. She meets him. It talks about Frank and Cleo's relationship, the development of it. They fall headfirst into this romance. It reshapes their lives. But is it for the best or for the worst? Who knows? So I really want to read this one because I just think it will be really well layered and developed, especially because it's chunky. And then I have The Great Believers by Rebecca Mackay. I've taken this out before and had to return it because I'd basically used it, I'd renewed it too many times and not read it. But this is the ultimate fiction on kind of the AIDS story. And last year, or maybe the year before, I watched It's a Sin in the UK on Channel 4, and that was about AIDS in the UK. It was heartbreaking, it was emotional. I absolutely adored it. It was the most well done thing I've seen in a long time. And obviously people herald this as the AIDS fiction novel. So I just desperately want to read it at some point. Right, I've got like 2 small stacks left. Right. We've got to speed up now. So I'm just going to quickly show you. I've got Bluebird, and Heaven My Home by Attica Locke. I bought these really cheap. I think I got them second hand. They were like £1.50 each, or maybe 50p, 70p, something. Because I don't know if this collection is going to progress. I feel like I haven't heard anything in a while about this. I don't know whether it's a duology or there might be more. But I read this a while ago, really loved it, wanted to carry on with the series. And I think if the series progresses, I will collect it, and then I can binge it and maybe reread this. Because I just think Attica Locke's writing was phenomenal. It's set in Texas, about a ranger, thriller, mystery style books. You've heard about them before, come on now. I bought myself No Exit by Taylor Adams, because everybody says that this is a fantastic thriller. Everybody recently has said that this is the one, you know, your hands in your mouth. It's just so fast paced. It's set at a rest stop. The character has gone to just take a break because I think there's weather conditions that mean they can't carry on travelling, and then she finds that there's a girl stuck in a cage in the back seat of somebody's car, or the boot of somebody's car, something like that. And so she realises she's stuck at this rest stop with somebody who is potentially a kidnapper. So it sounds like a really good premise. The only thing that puts me off is this is a really like craply made book, which is a little bit frustrating. Like, it's just really basic. The pages are like tiny, like really small font and a lot of pageness. Like Ron 276 it says, but it's probably more like a 350 page book because the font is really small. But anyway, I digress as always. Then I have The Wife Upstairs by Rachel Hawkins. This is a take on Jane Eyre and the kind of Wife Upstairs story plot, but it's been modernised. It says Jane is a broke dog walker. She finds Eddie Rochester. Eddie's handsome, rich, and lives alone in a beautiful mansion. He basically takes her into his home, but what's going to happen? I think this will be really fun. Jane Eyre is one of my favourite books of all time. Jane and Rochester's relationship is just a really beautiful thing. I think this might be darker, but I love his kind of grumpy, grouchy energy, and then the development of his relationship with her and all the trials and tribulations. It's just a great book, so happy to read that. Then I've got Sirens by Joseph Knox. I took this out of the library as well. This is one of 3 books, I believe, at the moment on this particular series. I think it's got Sirens, Smile, something, and something else. But I read True Crime Story by this author earlier this year. Found it was incredible. I really liked the mixed media. I was really hooked. I had to keep reading it. So I decided I would try his series out and see if I like it. The library has all 3 of the current series at the moment, so it would be easy to just put this back and dive into the next one if I enjoy it. Then I've got Claire McIntosh's Hostage. This is one of her most recent ones. She's just released a new book called The Last Party, which is going to be book 1 of a series. Again, Claire McIntosh is similar to Jessica Taylor. She does do a lot of appearances in true crime documentaries in this country, because she used to be a police officer and now she's a crime writer. I haven't read any of her stuff yet, but everybody says Hostage seems to be the best. If I enjoy it, I'll go back to her back catalogue, because it says on the back here, I Let You Go was one of her books, and that was really raved about a long time ago. It says it's basically about a flight, I think, and then there's a situation where I think the person on the flight has been told that they either need to save their daughter or everybody on board. She can't save both, so she's either got to crash the plane and kill everybody that's on board and save her daughter, or get her daughter killed and save everybody on the plane. So it's kind of a crisis kind of novel. So there's that. Then I've got Karen Slaughter's Pretty Girls. Everybody says this is the best Karen Slaughter, and I think this would be a really good place to start because a lot of people say that Karen Slaughter tends to write quite graphic thrillers, quite bloody and gory. But everybody says this is one of her best. So it says 20 years ago Claire Scott's elder sister Julia went missing. It was a mystery that was never solved. It tore the family apart. So I really want to read this because I also have a copy of her newest one. I forgot off the top of my head what the newest one is, but there's an older book that's kind of like the first one in a kind of rough duology between the two, but you could read them separately. Basically, I've seen a lot of people raving about Karen Slaughter books, so I want to read this one, and if I love it, she's got a massive back catalogue that I can just race through. So yeah, wanted to give her a go, and that was super cheap online. Then my boyfriend Chris bought me Nevada by Imogen Binnie. This is meant to be like the cult trans novel. It follows Marie, a young trans woman who breaks up with her girlfriend, steals her car and just drives off into the sunset, and it's kind of an identity search book. Chris saw me talking about it at Waterstones when we went to Liverpool, and he decided to give it me so that I could read it at some point. Then I have Little Secrets by Jennifer Hillier. She has a more recent book out at the moment, but a lot of people said that this was really good. I've seen so many people rave about Jennifer Hillier since I got this book. Creep, The Butcher, the newest one that's out. She's got a great back catalogue, so if I like this, I will go through her back catalogue and have a go at that. But I think this is just a standard thriller. Police search has gone cold, looks like some kind of relationship's gone wrong kind of thing. So I will be reading this at some point. Then I quickly have, I don't need to go into too much detail about this, my mum gave me a copy of Fingersmith by Sarah Waters. This is one of her most beloved books. Look at the incredibly tiny font there. This is it's 550 pages. It's absolute insanity. But this kind of follows, she does sapphic love stories, historical fiction, subplots. So this is London 1862. It's about two women, and I believe one is a kind of a madam. And they kind of do a bit of crime. I know Mum said there's a bit of a kind of crime mystery subplot. It's lengthy, it's dense. I will get to it at some point because people love this one. This is one of the most highly rated of Sarah Waters' books. I have read The Night Watchman, and that was incredible. So I do want to get through all of her works at some point as well. I have Night Film by Marissa Pessel. This took me ages to get a copy of, again from Amazon. It was about 3 or 4 times because I just wanted a pre-owned copy. I wasn't interested in a brand new copy because I'm not sure if I would love it, because I just thought this was going to be a really good thriller. It says, on a damp October night, the body of beautiful Ashley Cordova is discovered in a Manhattan warehouse. Though her death is ruled a suicide, investigative journalist Scott McGrath suspects otherwise. But then people tell me that it goes into a supernatural element, which will be interesting to see if I enjoy. It does have a lot of mixed media as well, this particular book. Let me see if I can show you. It's kind of got like articles and things like that in it. It's really dense, but I really want to give it a go because it's been on my radar for ages and it never went off my radar. So eventually, at some point, I decided to own it and see, because I don't think you can take this out of the library because it's just too dense. I think you need enough time to kind of go through it and see if you'll enjoy it. You know, it's nearly 600 pages, so there's that. Then I have If We Were Villains by M.L. Rio. I took this out of the library. This has been loosely compared to The Secret History by Donna Tartt, which I loved. Some people don't think this is as good, but it's definitely dark academia kind of vibes, which I'm in the mood for. It says Oliver Marks has served 10 years for a murder he may or may not have committed. When on his release, he's greeted by the detective who put him in prison. and the detective basically wants to know what happened, and he wants to find out from Oliver. So I think we're going to go through the history of these people's friendship and what really happened. So excited to read that. I promise we've only got a couple more left now. So I've got The Overnight Guest by Heather Gudenkoff. Again, this has been really well raved. Apparently it has a summer element, which has really irritated me because the author put on Instagram, "Don't be fooled by the icy cover," and I was like, well, it's got an incredibly icy cover, so I was expecting this would be a great thriller to like read in winter. But anyway, it says Wiley Lark doesn't mind being snowed in at the isolated farmhouse where she retreated to write her new book. As the storm worsens, she finds herself trapped in the house. Everybody said it's just really, really good, so it was on my radar, so I bought it. Then I have The First Day of Spring by Nancy Tucker. I literally just watched April from Getting Hygge With It talk about this book yesterday. She said it's her favourite book of the year so far. She said just everybody needs to read it. So she sold it to me that well. I checked literally that night whether my library had it. They did. I went today and I collected it. So this is about a young girl, 8-year-old Chrissy, who basically has committed a murder when she's a child. And then 15 years later she has her own 5-year-old daughter called Molly, and she's terrified that people will find out what happened and take her child away. But April said it kind of has a sweeping literary element to it, but it is an interesting premise, but you really get into the psyche of the characters and what happened. So I'm super excited to get to this one. And then last but not least, I have How Beautiful We Were by Mbolio Mbui, which I literally don't know much about. It says, set in the fictional African village of Kozawa, How Beautiful We Were tells the story of people living in fear amidst environmental degradation wrought by an American oil company. So this is one that's on the BookTube prize list that I've got out. So I'm going to read this. I'm going to have to read this pretty soon. And this is about 360 pages. Don't know much more about it, but I'll let you guys know. And then I'll just quickly tell you the other 5 books that are on my round. So I've got the Love Songs of W.E. Du Bois, which I saw in the library. I couldn't take it out because I've got too many books out. So I need to read some books and collect my reservations next week. But it's massive, and that's by Honorée Fenoy Jeffers. The Lincoln Highway by Amir Tolls, and I've just seen that at the library because that reservation's come in, and that is massive. I don't know why for the finals they wanted these massive chunky books, but whatever. Then I've got The 5 Wounds by Kristen Valdez Quaid. I have that on e-copy, so I can read that whenever. I have The Island of Missing Trees by Elif Shafak, and that's one of the reservations that's come in, so I'll be getting that very soon. And then Maggie Shipstead's Great Circle, which is another stonking big book. That reservation hasn't come in just yet. Those are everything that I wanted to haul. I just couldn't be arsed splitting it into 2 videos, if I'm being honest, which is bad for you guys, but easier for me in terms of editing. So thank you so much if you've made it this far in the video, and I hope you enjoyed a taster of what I've got, and eventually I'll read these books and be able to do a video where I actually tell you my thoughts on them. But thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll be back very soon with a brand new video. Bye now.